Scary telling. I stood in the dark alleyway, dressed in all black. I had been waiting for my next victim, and I could feel the thrill of the hunt coursing through my veins. And then I saw him, a pale, frail man in a dark suit, approaching me with fear in his eyes. I smiled at him, revealing my sharp, pointed teeth. "I'm here," I said, my voice soft and treacherous. "Are you ready?" The man nodded, his eyes wide with terror. He knew what was about to happen, but he couldn't help himself. He had heard the rumors, the whispers in the dark corners of the city, and now he was about to become a part of it. As we walked deeper into the alleyway, I slowed my pace, almost deliberately so. The man struggled to keep up, his legs feeling as though they were made of stone. Suddenly, I turned to him, my eyes glowing in the darkness. I grabbed him by the shoulders and pushed him up against the wall. He tried to scream, but his voice was silenced by my fangs sinking into his neck. I drank his blood, relishing the feeling of it flowing down my throat. I could feel his body convulsing in agony, his insides twisting and turning, his bowels emptying as the pain became too much to bear. But I didn't stop. I drank until he was nothing but a lifeless husk. As I wiped the blood from my lips, I smiled, revealing my bloody, fanged grin. I had been doing this for centuries, preying on unsuspecting victims who dared to cross my path. And tonight was no different. I disappeared into the shadows, leaving the man's body slumped against the wall. The thrill of the hunt still coursed through my veins, and I knew that I would continue to hunt as long as there were humans who dared to cross my path. I continued to drink the man's blood, reveling in the feeling of his life force draining away. His body convulsed in agony, and I could feel his insides twisting and turning. It was the most beautiful pain, the most exquisite agony, and I couldn't get enough. But as I continued to drink, something strange began to happen. The pain I was feeling was no longer just my own. It was as if the man's pain was becoming my own, as if his agony was seeping into my very being. I tried to pull away, but I couldn't. It was as if something was holding me there, something I couldn't see or touch, but could only feel. And then the man was gone, his body nothing but a lifeless husk. I wiped the blood from my lips and looked down at him, feeling a sense of emptiness that I had never felt before. For the first time in centuries, I felt fear. Fear of the pain that had consumed me, fear of the unknown force that had held me there. I disappeared into the shadows, unsure of what had just happened. As I moved through the city, I could feel the pain still lingering inside me, a reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness. I knew that I needed to find answers, to understand what had happened to me. And so, I began to search for the source of the pain, the force that had held me there. As I delved deeper into the darkness, I began to realize that there were others like me, creatures of the night who fed on the blood of the innocent. But unlike me, they had learned to control the pain, to harness it for their own purposes. And so, I began to learn from them, to understand the true power of my gift. For the pain was not just a burden, but a tool, a weapon to be wielded against those who dared to cross me. As I emerged from the shadows, I knew that I was no longer just a hunter, but a true predator, a creature of the night who would stop at nothing to satisfy my insatiable hunger. The next day, the police found the man's body in the alleyway. They couldn't explain what had happened to him, but rumors began to circulate about a woman dressed in all black who had been seen in the area. I knew that I needed to be careful, that I couldn't let them catch me. But I also knew that I couldn't stop hunting, that I couldn't let my hunger go unsatisfied. And so, I continued to prowl the city, searching for my next victim. I was careful, always moving in the shadows, never letting anyone see me. But the rumors continued to spread, and soon, people began to fear me. They knew that I was out there, waiting to strike, waiting to feed on their blood. I didn't care. I knew that I was stronger than them, that I had the power to take what I wanted. And so, I continued to hunt, taking only what I needed to survive. As the sun set on another day, I emerged from the shadows once again, ready to hunt my next victim. I could feel the hunger gnawing at me, driving me forward. And then I saw him, a man walking down the street, his eyes fixed on his phone. He was so engrossed in what he was doing that he didn't even notice me approaching him. I grabbed him by the shoulders and pushed him up against the wall. He tried to scream, but I silenced him with a quick bite to the neck. As I drank his blood, I could feel the pain and fear pulsing through him, and it only made me stronger. I drank until he was nothing but a lifeless husk, and then I disappeared into the shadows once again. The city was my playground, my hunting ground. And as long as there were humans who dared to cross my path, I would continue to feed on their blood to satisfy my insatiable hunger. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, the rumors continued to circulate about the woman in black. But I didn't care. I knew that I was invincible, that no one could stop me. And so, I continued to hunt, to feed on the blood of the innocent. For I was not just a predator, but a true creature of the night, a force to be reckoned with. And as long as there were humans who dared to cross my path, I would continue to reign supreme. I have always been fascinated by the mysteries of the universe. As a physicist, I have dedicated my entire life to understanding the fundamental nature of reality. And then, I made a discovery that changed everything. I discovered a way to manipulate time on a quantum level. It was groundbreaking, revolutionary even. I could move particles forward and backward in time, and I could create temporal loops that seemed to defy the laws of physics. It was exhilarating, and I felt like I was on the verge of unlocking the secrets of the universe. But then, something strange started to happen. As I experimented with my newfound power, I began to feel like I was being watched. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, a side effect of spending too much time alone in my laboratory. But the feeling persisted, and it grew stronger with each passing day. I became obsessed with understanding the source of this presence. I searched for answers in every corner of the universe, but nothing seemed to satisfy my curiosity. And then, I discovered the concept of Graham's number. At first, it was just a mathematical curiosity, a number so large that it was beyond human comprehension. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it held the key to understanding the universe beyond my own layer. I became fixated on reaching the next layer of Graham's number, on unlocking the secrets of the universe beyond my own. I spent years, even decades, trying to break through the barrier that separated my layer from the next. The more I delved into the mysteries of the universe, the more I realized that there was an infinite number of layers, each one more complex and unfathomable than the last. And as I got closer to my goal, I began to feel the presence of something beyond my understanding, something malevolent and terrifying. I knew that I was not alone in my manipulation of time. There was something else out there, something that sought to consume me and my entire layer. But I could not stop, could not turn back. My curiosity and obsession had become too great. And so, I continued to push forward, ever closer to the next layer of Graham's number. I knew that I was playing a dangerous game, that I was risking everything for the sake of my curiosity. But I could not help myself. I was driven by a force beyond my control, a force that seemed to have a will of its own. As I sit here, alone in my laboratory, I realize that I am trapped in an endless cycle of animation, controlled by an entity beyond my understanding. And yet, I cannot help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the universe that I have helped to create. My discovery, once seen as groundbreaking and awe-inspiring, has become a curse that will haunt the universe forevermore. But even as I face my doom, I cannot help but feel a sense of pride and wonder at what I have accomplished. I have unlocked the secrets of the universe, even if it means that I will be consumed by them. As I continued to push forward in my quest to reach the next layer of Graham's number, the presence that had been haunting me grew stronger and more intense. It was no longer just a feeling, but a tangible force that seemed to be watching my every move. I began to feel like I was being consumed by fear and paranoia, never able to shake the feeling that something was watching me. I couldn't explain it, but I knew that the entity beyond my layer was malevolent and had no good intentions. Despite my growing sense of dread, I refused to give up on my quest. I continued to push forward, even as the malevolent entity seemed to grow stronger and more aggressive. As I delved deeper into the mysteries of the universe, I began to feel like I was the only one aware of the entity's existence. It was like a terrible secret that only I knew, and it was driving me to the brink of insanity. I tried to find a way to break free from the curse, to find a way to escape the entity's grasp, but it seemed impossible. The more I struggled against it, the stronger it seemed to become. My isolation grew more profound, and I became consumed by my obsession with reaching the next layer of Graham's number. I was no longer just a physicist, I was a slave to the malevolent entity beyond my understanding. And then, as I was on the verge of giving up hope, I had a realization. The entity was not just watching me, it was controlling me. Every move I made, every decision I took was under its influence. I realized that the entity's control over me was absolute, and that I was trapped in an endless cycle of animation that I could never escape from. I was both godlike and slavish, forever bound to the will of a force beyond my understanding. As I realized the full extent of my situation, I felt a sense of dread and despair that I had never felt before. I was trapped in an endless curse, one that would consume me and everything I had ever known. But even as I faced my doom, I could not help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the malevolent entity's power. It was beyond my understanding, beyond my comprehension, and it controlled everything. I was just a small part of an infinite and unfathomable system. My curiosity and obsession had led me to this point, and I knew that I was doomed to live out an existence that was both godlike and slavish. But even as I faced my doom, I could not help but feel a sense of pride and wonder at what I had accomplished. I had unlocked the secrets of the universe, even if it meant that I was doomed to be consumed by them. As the malevolent entity's control over me became absolute, I realized that I was trapped in an endless curse. My existence was no longer my own, it was dictated by the will of a force beyond my understanding. I was a slave to the malevolent entity, forever bound to animate the universe, to create the illusion of time and space. And yet, I could not help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the universe that I had helped to create. As I existed in this endless cycle of animation, I realized that my discovery had become a curse that would haunt the universe forevermore. I had unlocked the secrets of the universe, but at what cost? The malevolent entity controlled not just my layer of Graham's number, but all the layers beyond. I realized that there were infinite layers, each one more complex and unfathomable than the last. And yet, the malevolent entity controlled them all. As I continued to exist in this endless curse, I realized that my curiosity and obsession had led me to this point. I had sought to understand the universe beyond my own, to unlock its secrets, and now I was trapped in an endless cycle of animation, forever bound to the will of the malevolent entity. I could not help but feel a sense of pride and wonder at what I had accomplished. I had unlocked the secrets of the universe, even if it meant that I was doomed to be consumed by them. And yet, as I continued to exist in this endless curse, I knew that my fate served as a warning to all who sought to understand the mysteries of the universe. The malevolent entity was beyond human comprehension, beyond human understanding, and it controlled everything. My discovery, once seen as groundbreaking and awe-inspiring, had become a curse that would haunt the universe forevermore. And yet, as I faced my doom, I could not help but feel a sense of wonder and awe at the universe that I had helped to create. In the end, I existed in an endless cycle of animation, forever bound to the will of the malevolent entity. My curiosity and obsession had led me to this point, and I knew that my fate served as a warning to all who sought to understand the mysteries of the universe. As the endless cycle of animation continued, I could not help but feel a sense of pride and wonder at what I had accomplished. I had unlocked the secrets of the universe, even if it meant that I was doomed to be consumed by them. And yet, as I faced my doom, I could not help but feel a sense of despair at the infinite and unfathomable layers beyond my understanding. As I set out on my new moon hike with my friend Sage, I couldn't help but feel excited. We loved hiking together and always made a point to go during the new moon. We enjoyed turning our flashlights off and taking in the pitch-black darkness and the Milky Way above. But as we started our hike, I noticed something odd. The moon was already in the sky, and it was a full moon. It was reflecting brightly off the snow-covered desert floor, and it seemed out of place. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But as we continued our hike, I realized that the moon was moving in an unnatural orbit. It was circling the canyon and following us. I tried to brush it off as a trick of the light, but the closer the moon got, the more ominous its stare became. Sage and I tried to convince ourselves that it was nothing to worry about and continued our hike. However, as we walked deeper into the canyon, we realized that the moon was not behaving normally. It was moving against the usual orbit and seemed to be circling us. We started to feel a growing sense of dread as we realized that something was not right with the moon. We tried to ignore it and focus on our hike, but the closer the moon got, the more we felt its presence. The moon's stare became more intense, and we could see it blinking like a human eye. We tried to rationalize it and come up with an explanation, but we couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As we continued our hike, we heard strange noises in the distance. They sounded like whispers, and they seemed to be coming from the moon itself. We couldn't believe our ears, and we felt like we were in a nightmare. We tried to speed up our hike and get out of the canyon, but the moon was following us, growing closer and closer. Its haunting stare was almost too much to bear, and we were both consumed by fear. As we reached the top of the saddle, we realized that the moon was now right on top of us, and we could feel its ghostly presence. We tried to scream for help, but no one came. We were alone with the moon, and we didn't know what to do next. We felt trapped, and the moon's stare was making us feel dizzy and disoriented. We tried to stay together, but we could feel the snow separating us. I called out to Sage, but she didn't answer. I was alone with the moon, and I knew that something was not right. Its stare was becoming more and more intense, and I could see it moving closer to me. I felt like I was in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to wake up. As I tried to run, I felt a strange force pulling me back. The moon was circling me, and its stare was almost too much to bear. I screamed for help, but no one came. I was alone with the moon, and I knew that something terrible was about to happen. As the moon closed in on me, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear my own screams echoing through the canyon, but I knew that no one would come to help me. I tried to run, but the snow was too deep, and it slowed me down. The moon was getting closer and closer, and its stare was almost blinding. I felt like I was being suffocated by its ghostly presence. I could see Sage in the distance, but she was too far away. I tried to call out to her, but my voice was hoarse from screaming. I felt like I was in a nightmare, and I couldn't wake up. As I tried to run towards Sage, I felt a strange force pulling me back. The moon was circling me, and its stare was becoming more and more intense. I could feel my legs giving out, and I fell to the ground. As I lay there, I could see the moon hovering over me, its stare almost blinding. I tried to crawl away, but I could feel its ghostly presence consuming me. I felt like I was being swallowed by the darkness, and I didn't know how to escape. Suddenly, I heard a blood-curdling scream. I turned around and saw that Sage was gone. I called out for her, but I got no answer. I was alone with the moon, and I didn't know what to do. As I tried to get up and run, I felt a strange force pulling me back. The moon was circling me, and its stare was almost too much to bear. I felt like I was going to pass out, and I knew that something terrible was about to happen. As I closed my eyes and waited for the end, I felt a strange sensation. I could see the moon blinking, and it seemed to be moving away from me. I opened my eyes and saw that the moon was disappearing, fading away into the darkness. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew that I had to get out of the canyon. I crawled towards the saddle, hoping to find help. As I reached the top, I saw that the moon was gone, and the snow was slowly receding. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, but I knew that I had to find Sage. I called out for her, but I got no answer. I searched the area, but she was nowhere to be found. As the sun started to rise, I knew that I had to get help. I ran towards the nearest town, hoping to find someone who could help me find Sage. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew that I had to find out. As I reached the town, I collapsed on the ground, exhausted and afraid. I told the locals what had happened, but they didn't believe me. They thought that I was crazy, that I had made up the story. But I knew the truth. I had seen the haunted moon, and I had survived. I didn't know what had happened to Sage, but I knew that I had to find out. The legend of the haunted moon had become real, and I was a part of it. After the incident, I was never the same. I couldn't sleep at night, and I was haunted by the memory of the haunted moon. I couldn't shake the feeling that Sage was still out there, lost and alone. As the weeks passed, I heard more and more stories about the haunted moon. People who had hiked during the new moon reported strange occurrences and unexplained disappearances. The legend of the haunted moon had become real, and people were afraid. Despite my own experiences, people didn't believe me. They thought that I was crazy or that I had made up the story. But I knew the truth, and I was determined to find out what had happened to Sage. I searched the area for any sign of her, but I found nothing. The authorities searched the area, but they couldn't find any trace of her. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. As time went on, the legend of the haunted moon grew stronger. People avoided hiking during the new moon, and the town became a ghost town. The mystery of the unnatural moon remained unsolved, and people could only speculate on what had caused its sinister presence. I became obsessed with finding out the truth, and I spent countless hours researching the moon and its effects. I read about ancient legends and myths, hoping to find a clue. But nothing seemed to explain the haunted moon. As the years went on, the memory of the haunted moon faded. People stopped talking about it, and life returned to normal. But I never forgot about Sage and the haunted moon. Years later, I received a package in the mail. It was from an anonymous sender, and it contained a piece of paper with a message on it. The message read, "The moon is watching." I knew what it meant, and I knew that I had to return to the canyon. I packed my bags and set out on the journey, determined to find out what had happened to Sage. As I hiked towards the canyon, I felt a growing sense of dread. The memories of the haunted moon came flooding back, and I could feel its ghostly presence watching me. When I reached the canyon, I saw that the moon was already in the sky. It was a new moon, and it was reflecting brightly off the desert floor. I felt like I was in a nightmare, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. As I hiked deeper into the canyon, I felt like I was being watched. I could see strange shadows moving in the distance, and I heard whispers in my ear. I knew that I was not alone. As I reached the spot where Sage had disappeared, I felt a strange force pulling me towards the ground. I could see the moon staring down at me, its ghostly presence consuming me. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It was Sage's voice, and she was calling out to me. I followed her voice, and I saw her standing in the distance. As I approached her, she disappeared into thin air. But I knew that she was still out there, lost and alone. The memory of the haunted moon stayed with me, and I knew that I would never forget the terror that it had brought. But I also knew that I had to find Sage, no matter what the cost.